Hello, everybody, and welcome to Signal Box. Today we have got with us two wonderful guests. We have got Marc and Tiago. We've actually got kind of two co-hosts today. We've got Greg, our usual co-host, and Chris, who you'll be seeing a bit of in the future because we decided to let Greg have some breaks. Not many, just some. So without further ado, over to you, Greg.
Oh, it's Chris. Chris is in the chair today. Chris, go for it, man. Go for it, Chris. Have it there, Vin. Have it.
Over to Chris.
I don't know. We haven't discussed our fee for this yet. Anyway, well, welcome everyone. We're here to talk about security and topics around that. And our guests have probably got some very burning problems. So I'm going to throw Marc straight into the deep end and ask him to introduce himself and tell him what his top security challenge is at the moment. Tell us what his top security challenge is at the moment. Go for it, Marc.
I'm Marc. I have been in IT for a number of years, too many that I want to mention. My background was started on service desk, then went through infrastructure security, and now I do exposure management. It's just another posh name for vulnerability management. My burning thing at the moment is AI. So over the last few weeks, we've seen things like Mythos come to the forefront with Anthropic. You know, there's a new AI agent around every corner, or a new AI bot around every corner. I'm for the onset of AI. In the moment, the world feels like everything is AI. It's going really, really fast. There is no control, and every single supply chain attack that I've read about recently has been instigated by somebody making a boo-boo when using AI in their own environments.
Right. So we talk about AI quite a lot, and the people that know me know that in December I declared on another podcast that I had AI fatigue. But recently I've been on the road to Damascus on AI, so I'm now using it quite a lot. Now, before we go into, I think we're going to be talking about AI a lot this week and also in coming weeks. But before we do that, Tiago, can you introduce yourself and let us know what your top challenge is? Is it AI, we wonder?
Well, Tiago, 26 and some years in industry, across different sectors, verticals, and job positions, from penetration testing, vulnerability management, head of now CISO, global CISO in a SaaS company. Challenges. I think the challenges have not changed much the past 20 years. Even with AI, the challenges I think are the same, to be honest with you. The fundamentals always play a stake. The way that companies have released AI, I slightly cynical think that we are paying to get our data exfiltrated. That is my joke to the fellow security people, is that literally we are in a world that we're literally paying to get our data exfiltrated, and that's the reality. All the LLMs out there were not designed with what I would consider the fundamentals of a good platform in place. No accountability, no one have an idea what data is being pushed there, what data is being vectorized, all of it stays. But they're not, from my perspective, really new problems. They're not different from the problems that we had in the 90s or the 2000s about information access management or role-based access controls. They're just twisted in a slightly different way. So that's pretty much what keeps me awake at night, is what is going to be the next problem, regardless, is the old fundamentals, the new fundamentals, or the next generation fundamentals.
Cool. So would you say it was more about the perception that AI is a machine thing rather than, it's a bunch of human attackers, maybe? Yeah.
It's a mix, I think. Considering, I think it's 60 to 70% of the current internet traffic is non-human identities.
Mm-hmm.
We have APIs calling to APIs, and now with agents, and now with LLMs on the mix, and with other machine learning systems on the mix. As Marc very candidly was saying, God knows what goes where at any given point. And once you set the information out there, most people think they have it under control. I strongly suggest that they don't, because the supply chain, as again Marc was steadily pointing out, is I would not say impossible, but if you try, you need a team of humans, potentially with a few agents, just to be able to track down where in the end, what is the circle where your data goes, from security tools to normal office tools to any specialized tools. Having a full solid understanding, what is literally the boundaries, where up to your data ends. I like to think that at this point, you cannot really understand it. We literally lost control of our data in the worst possible way.
So, I mean, I've been in organizations where we've had an enterprise architect and they have understood everything end to end because they've grown in a company and it's gone organic and they've started and they were there from the beginning and blah, blah, blah. I think that's quite rare these days, even for a human to understand the entire landscape. So, I mean, maybe AI is the answer to that, though. Maybe it can go and find it and draw a picture. Now, I am going to tell you about a little experience. I'm going to hand over to Greg because he's gagging to get in on this. He loves AI. But a couple of weeks ago, I asked an AI agent to set up a server with a blockchain validator. Happened to be Tezos, the chain I work on, and it went away and did it. It did it all. I did give it some instructions to do that, but we did actually try it with just asking it as well, and it was able to do it relatively well. Now, there's obviously concerns there that you've got a cryptographic key in the middle of all that, and if someone has, modified the agent to spew out any crypto keys, secret keys, you've got some concerns around that. But by and large, if you use the tool well, it will help you. On the other hand, I get a daily report about me and the companies I work for delivered to me, and some of it is just garbage. So I think at the moment you have to be careful about how you use these tools, but in 5-10 years they're just going to be absolutely amazing, right? So, Greg, come on, your words of wisdom.
I think AI is fantastic. I really, really do. And I ponder on it all the time outside the technical side of it. So we're all looking at this as technical, right? But if you look at it as a tool, what actually is AI? So when you're using a tool like Claude and you're asking it questions, it's fascinating that role that it's taking. And I can't quite put my finger on what it is. But when you're working, previously, I've got a problem. And as you know, I'm a network security engineer and about 50-60% of my time is doing that. 60% of the Google mining I used to do, 60% of the majority of the Google mining that I've done, or the majority of the manual reading I've done is gone. I don't do it anymore. I've got Claude and I've got Copilot, and I just say, I'm trying to do this. Tell me how to do it. And I'll find out. As we mentioned last week, 80% of the time it's right. 20% of the time it's just talking nonsense and making stuff up that ain't there until you tell it. So I'm struggling quite what to call it at the moment from a human perspective to use it. But in your personal life as well, when you use it, and I use it quite a lot now, it's amazing. It's like having this little thing on your shoulder that tells you what to do. It's fabulous. And when you come down to business, it's a really, really cool tool. But where I see the problem, because I think stuff from a defensive perspective, if you're using a Gen AI agent and you're using something like Claude and you've got a little window in a browser where you're doing it, it can tell you stuff. And it's fairly safe at that point there. You're doing all right. It's there. As soon as you start to get agents, as soon as you start to get plugins, and as soon as you get to that stuff that ends up on your endpoint, that's what your problem is. And that really, really is the defensive nightmare. And it's a defensive nightmare, and it comes all the way up from how you tune your AV, how you tune your tools like Defender, how you tune your firewalls, and how you tune all of this to protect the agentic stuff that's happening, because that's where the risk is. And all the layers and all the controls we've put in play, for example, you've got a CI/CD, you've got a firmly established DevOps process, you've got a CI/CD, and you've now got a tool that completely can countermine that because you've given it access. You've given it access into something like your Azure DevOps. You've given it access into your Azure or your AWS console or your GCP, and you're getting it to create stuff. You've circumnavigated all the controls you've got in place. You're SAST and DAST. That's where the problem is. And that's where the focus and the intention needs to be on containment. It's a containment issue more than anything else. It's a containment and government issue is what I see on it.
But then containment's an issue, isn't it? When you've got a sales and marketing department that are using a CRM that you know we're using the CRM, but what you don't know is that they've decided to use a new AI add-on that's just happened to appear in top right-hand corner. And all of a sudden, you've got sales and marketing sharing confidential client data with the helpful little friends. And that's back to Tiago's point. Sorry to interrupt you, by the way, Chris, I'm on one. And that's back to Tiago's point, which is, where's this circle end? Where's it go? And there's so many different assets to what we should be worried about with AI. I mean, I were in Italy 2 weeks ago, I think it was, and we decided to go to Milan one day and Venice the other. And in the olden days, how I got there in first place would have been completely different. I wouldn't have just gone on internet, picked any old random flight, and then found someone on Airbnb and got there and all this lot. But anyway, the point being is, I would have needed a road atlas, some understanding to actually work out how to get from where we're going to where we're going. And then I'd probably have arrived in Venice looking for a parking sign, or same in Milan. Not now. Straight onto AI. What's the best way to get to Milan if I'm driving? Don't go into Milan, whatever you do. Park at Lumbago outside, get a metro in. This is the metro to get. This is how long it'll take. This is where to buy your ticket. And on one hand, it's amazing. On the other hand, it's vastly reducing the need to think. And
it's also not taking you really bad. It's also not next to you and protecting you when it's just told you to go past some really bad parts in Milan where you're going to get your head staved in.
Well, you don't know for sure. You're just hoping and you're relying on it. And you switch that back to our world, and it's like for simple tasks that we used to do that were a bit of a pain because we'd read a manual to remind ourselves. We don't bother reading manual anymore. We say, how do I do this again? I've forgotten. And it tells us, and we take that bit as gospel.
But that's no different. Sorry, Chris. The AI in its basic form, large language model that basically is an enhanced Google search engine. If you look at it in basic terms. So every time you search on Google now, the first thing it gives you is an AI summary of what you're looking for.
Yep.
And it's using that from the search data that it's had and produced, and questions that people have put in, and documents and everything else that's been fed into it. I'm fine with that, and I get the point you're making. When you get to the agentic AIs, you're then creating something that you want to do a piece of work. Now, can AI lie? Yes, it can. You'll ask it a question via an agent when you're building an agent, and it will give you an answer. How do you know that answer is right? Because you've got the expertise in your head to know whether you've got the right or wrong answer. And then you have to keep building it and adding the context to the agent to get the answer that you want out of it. So if you're doing a simple task of building a server and you give it all the context that it needs, it can probably go off and do that. If you ask it to analyze stuff and to, look at different bits and pieces, I've spent a week building an agent to do vulnerability management, risk assessments, and to go into certain tooling to pull information out. It'll go into the tooling, it will use parts of the tooling, it doesn't ask the right questions of the tooling, it doesn't pull the right information back from the API because it needs to have specific table names to go and look at to get the right information back. If you're a person who doesn't know that, then the answers you get are just it's a bunch of nonsense. The other thing as well. Hold on, Tiago. The other thing as well is that when you're doing this, you have to continually build the context up to make sure you get the answer that you're requiring. Yes, it makes it quicker for you, but there can still be a lot of effort going into building the agent in the first place to make those efficiency drives longer term. And I'm not saying AI is a bad thing. I quite like AI. I love it when I'm creating documents because I can get it to create a document really, really quickly. And I have to just go through and address it because it may not be in the right context I want to put it in, stuff like that. So some things really, really good at. AI in the wrong hands, one is dangerous and two is uncontrolled.
Yeah, but isn't that just the maturity of the tool? I mean, behind me I've got a load of books. So we've all grown up in a time where we learn things from books, teachers, other people, and when we use AI, we ask it, and we have a sort of reference point. Now, when you're building your agent, you've got a feel for the problem, even if it's not your area of expertise. You'd know whether something was right or wrong most of the time. I think what we're going to see is in 5-6 years' time, or maybe sooner actually, because this has got really good, really quick in January, turning point. We're going to come to a point where people aren't going to need to have that feel. So I think that's just a maturity thing. I think in 5-6 years' time, we won't be having these conversations. We will be on, I don't know, basic income from governments, sitting at home drinking cocktails.
If I may step in.
thing.
Yeah, if I may step in and just pick up what Marc said, and don't get me wrong, just because I'm critical on the way that LLMs are being deployed to the market does not mean I don't use AI. I've been using AI since 1998. Back in the day, it was a different thing. We used it in chemistry to predict, creating mathematical models to predict reactions in the industry, what decision trees and Markov chains, as they're well known by now. No, I've been using AI and I'm using AI extensively on my work. And to Marc's point, I would compare AI as a junior person in my team. Every time I need to correct them, every time I understand what they're doing, every, let's say, development cycle, go do a retro, tell me what is that did not went well, and do a continual improvement. I don't see AI that different from training a junior person into the system. And more, my experience, at least in the last 6 months, is the models are becoming better, they are becoming bigger. But there are two fundamental problems that one of them Google solved recently was about the session memory, which they found a way to compact to 4 bits the session memory, meaning that they will have a better context, because losing the context when dealing with a very extensive development is definitely a problem. The systems, none of them that I've found so far is able to continuously maintain. So you need to keep a record. You need to include agents to do that for you, or tell the system to do that, which of course consumes an hefty amount of tokens. That again, that's their business model. But that's what I found, is that you need to train the different agents that you have that will do the different tasks on a continual improvement model. That so far has been working fantastically for me. So every sprint that I make, the agents are becoming better and better with time and creating less and less problems in there. But going back to your point, Chris, what scares me, especially when the geopolitical scenarios in front of us are not a calm drive to the sunset, is a very tension across different parts of the world that have massive impacts on energy supply, and we still depend on them. And of course, data centers that provide AI need is, what if you don't have that power tomorrow? What happens when you have a generation that was not brought up to think or to gather knowledge the same way that we did? Again, as you guys pointed out, we had books, we had the trainings, we had professors, we have this, we have that, we had sharing information. What we're seeing more and more is people not even want to absorb any information because they have AI, they have Google. Yes, Greg.
If I can just say,
yeah, please do. It's a conversation, not a monologue. Please.
I know, I love it, and just going to drop in here quickly, Chris. But the thing that I find is navigation, right? So in the Navy, in the British Navy, they still teach you how to use a sextant. They still teach you how to measure the distance to the horizon. They still teach you to do the longitude timings. They teach all of that. In the American Navy, they use GPSs.
Yes.
And it's the same analogy, that there's some people who know the old ways of doing it, and there's some people being brought up, and it's obfuscated. They don't know that there is another way. And here there be dragons.
Before we all join together, me and Chris were talking exactly about that. How we send away a silly amount of books that now we are both regretting that we give away or we lost or just put it in the trash. The vinyl and CD records that now you pay a stupid fortune for something you don't have because it's streaming. My concern with knowledge is one, we have a dependence of a couple of countries that by geopolitical reasons or by changings on administration that decided, well, we won't sell this to you anymore. You don't have access to it anymore. And how we will be able to operate. So I am seeing two problems in our industry. There is no lack of people. I think, to be honest, there is a lot of people out there. But we also need to keep training people. I've seen management saying, oh, we don't need juniors anymore. We have LLMs. No, you need juniors because if you don't train those juniors, they will not know how to do things the next few years. Marc is on the verge or looking already to do enjoying the rest of his life without having to work. Most of us within the next, hopefully 15, 25 years will be in the same position. But I would question what is that the new generations are going to learn from us if critical thinking is not there. Again, to your point, Chris and Marc, if you don't have critical thinking, how can you establish the ways to distinguish is this correct, is not correct, is this truth, what is the source of truth? When everything is digital, nothing is physical.
But I think,
can I just add something in a minute, Chris? Can I go next when you say your bit? Because I'm thinking of something.
I was just going to say, I think, and again, the AI thing magnifies the problems. Like there's mistakes in books. I mean, I did a lot of research on this top row here when I was writing my book. You know, there are mistakes in books as well, but they're just not as prevalent because the time to get from the start of the book to publishing the book, there's quite a lot of checking going on there. Whereas this is more immediate. So I think the AI effect, as it were, magnifies the problems. So you get to the problems quicker. Sorry, go on, Greg. Go for it.
Right, so I'm going to add one just on this one, and this is a bit of a doomsday scenario. So doomsday scenario, Marc knows all about vulnerabilities. Marc works around vulnerabilities all the time, but he's building agents in AIs. So he might be building an agent in Claude or Copilot or one of those tools. Our job has been to find vulnerabilities and stop malware getting out. Our agent in Claude has got a vulnerability on it that's exploitable, that gets exploited. So now you've got an agent, on a rogue agent on your network that's got all of this power, but none of the guardrails. It's like having this netcat listener on steroids on your network. But this netcat listener, which you're not sending instructions to anymore, is compromising. It's doing its own thing. And it's worked out where it can get you. What do you do then?
Well,
this is not different. So sorry, Chris, let me just quickly chip in. But that's not different, for example, back in the days when you'd have a junior person that you barely know and you cannot know if you trust or not, and you just give them admin permissions to everything. Even today, the biggest hacks that you have seen is because someone paid and literally bribed and corrupted people to give them access to things. So AI, humans, they just use different ways to get there. But the problem, again, the fundamental problem is there. Information access management, role-based access control.
It's just quicker because it's a machine. I mean, the largest fine that I'm aware of under the old data protection legislation in the UK, we won't name who they are, but what
it's
happened?
On the ICO website, no worries.
It's on the ICO website. What happened is the company was recruiting a bunch of people, and they're perpetually recruiting. So people walk in, 3 months later they walk out, and apparently the local mafia gave these guys who've got nothing to lose some extra money to scrape customer information from screens. So the call center was outsourced to another country. At the time, you just had the idea of a data controller. You didn't have the data controller and the data processor. So the data controller is liable. So the company in the UK got the fine and couldn't pass on any of the fine or any of the reputational damage to the other company. And that was just, guys earning probably sub $500 a month but they've been bribed, and they're probably somewhere else now and doing something else.
There's no accounts for that. I mean, I might be in this industry. I might have known certain people who might work for MI6 who might have paid cleaners at local police forces to get certain information about certain people so they could track them anywhere they ever wanted, when they wanted, dead easy. I mean, just so it's not very safe, is it?
No, but I mean that is indeed, this is the sort of reason why the data the GDPR came in, because it wanted to put some responsibility on the people processing the data as much as the people controlling it. Now, of course, we've got agents that are doing a lot of the processing and making decisions now, or if you can call it a decision. I don't know. Does a computer decide? I suppose it does.
Yes, it does. That's why we created Markov chains and the basic techniques that allows us to have machine learning. It does make decisions, statistical analysis decisions, but it's still a decision. The question is, can you remove the liability from you when you put this on LLM or in an agent? No, you're still liable. And that's one of the biggest conversations with my legal teams is, we need to have a human in the loop. But like all good humans, most of people just say, yes, yes, yes. Which one of you have actually read an ULAA of any software?
And that's because you're paying them £500 a month, as Chris just said, because AIs can do it cheaper. Go on, Chris.
No, I have. I've occasionally read licensing agreements. I mean,
you're one of the few.
But
most people.
I did. I mean, I threw out a well-known video conferencing platform a couple of years ago from a company because I got a lawyer to review the terms, and we found this unlimited liability clause, which is amazing. I mean, this is a video conferencing platform that should remain nameless. But what if someone was to join a video call and cause, say, £3 million of damage on that video call? You can find yourself a little liable, and the platform owner was kind of saying, you're on your own, so you've got to control your calls. And if you recall at the time, a lot of these calls are a little bit open, so people were joining them and hijacking them. That's been locked down a lot. But if you do read the terms and conditions, you will find a lot of things, particularly American contracts, on unlimited liability around this stuff. And in Europe, we have more of a issue around, we discuss what's fair and what isn't fair, and we have other guidelines. But yeah, definitely read your terms and conditions for sure.
RTFM. Who's going to do it? I'm not.
I never read.
Again, to my point, most people just go, yes, 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 yes. Click. The agent says...
Next, finish. Go on, Mark.
Give it to the legal team to read. Let them come and ask a question. So I'm sat quietly listening, and I've got a few challenges. So I've probably been in the industry the longest here. Well, maybe Greg. I shaved mine off this morning, so that's fine.
Yeah, there you go.
When I started, it was, the internet was in its infancy. Hacking didn't really happen. You had people on IRC chat and things like that were, pretending to be other people and that sort of thing. And over time, the scope of what you do was very wide, and now it becomes very narrow, and you're specialists in certain fields. And I walk around today and I look at our youngsters of today, and they believe everything that they see online. There doesn't always seem to be the necessary teaching that's there to say, don't believe everything you see online. The prevalence of AI videos at the moment, and there's some really shocking, poorly stand out as AI and are marked up as AI is there. But there's some other stuff out there that's, really good quality, which would fool, a lot of good people. The problem with AI for me is that I understand what it's there for. I like what it does. I like the efficiencies it gives you. I just feel that it's almost like, if I do an analogy of the electric car, so the electric car really kicked off when Tesla built the Tesla, but nobody seems to realize that there were electric cars before that there were disabled vehicles or milk floats and all the other bits and pieces that have been around for a long time. But nobody really remembers them. They always remember Tesla. So when we get to AI, are people going to forget about everything that came before AI and only concentrate on what AI can do for you? And at the same time, you lose that level-headedness that's there to say, actually, I don't believe that, or I don't think that's right. I'm not sure this is doing it in the right way. And it's a bit like what Tiago was saying about the young person. When you bring a young person into a company, you want juniors into a company because you want to teach them the right way of doing things. Don't mind about AI, quite happy with AI and what it does, but it needs to be done in the right way with the right guardrails and the right security features around it. We talk about AI doing things quickly, which Chris said, it's like there. How quick is it going to be before somebody finds another way of releasing Mythos from Anthropic and suddenly you've got a load of supply chain attacks going on because some bad actor has managed to compromise it? And at this point in time, my worry is that as a exposure management specialist, can I keep up with AI without building more AI to combat AI? And it's so I know this will sound really funny. It's the start of Skynet.
It's fighting fire with fire. The only thing I can say around this is, again, going back to how the suppliers are providing. I work with a supplier of software. I work in a SaaS company, and we also have liberating our own AI. I'm not going to tell where I work. I'm going to pitch, but I'd like to highlight that it is a decision of the companies to do this in a better way or the worse way. Because we work with governments and defense and critical infrastructure, one of the things that was very clear from the beginning with me, and fortunately I'm in a place where the CISO does have some intervention on the product side from the beginning, not in the end, just to check, hey, Tiago, can you put this to production tomorrow morning? Can you verify if this is secure? We start in the beginning. Was the fact that we've put role-based access controls in place, even from the vectorized database. And I think if I look at all the solutions that I'm seeing out there, none of them, literally none of them, have this in place. And I think it's a fundamental shift. And as consumers, we need to push those providers to do better in terms of the architecture of their systems. Because if a small company like the one where I'm working right now, relatively small, can implement this and it works quite well, why we should not ask the same from any other vendors? Why we have a pool of vectorized data that is shared across all the clients that if you manage to bypass the prompt security, anyone can have access to it. That is one of my biggest concerns. And that's why I still joke with we are paying to get our data exfiltrated, when I know that the data of my company will go into a lake that have no boundaries between the different clients. It's not even separated apart potentially from an indexing number in the data lake. That's where I ask, is this a kind of supplier that I want to be? And that's the questions I've asked to everyone in my team when we have these conversations about decisions between suppliers of LLMs. Okay, this is the reality. This is how they do it. Is this what we want? Is this an acceptable risk for what they're doing, considering the data that we're going to put in there?
I think we have to take risks to make progress, but at the same time, I think those risks need to be measured.
Correct.
And measured in a way that allows the progress, but without causing reputational harm or even GDPR type personal data harm. Although, again, GDPR, there's so many regulations now that are coming out that we need to comply with, which in some ways actually slows down the innovation that we want.
Well, also GDPR is 10 years old in law and was probably being developed years before that. It could probably do with a refresh.
Well, it's not just that. Like GDPR is an example of something that's been here for a long time and definitely needs a refresh. But then you look at something like ISO 42001, which is like out of date as soon as it's written because of the speed of AI. It's frightening. And I think that the problem we've got is this. Like, let's just imagine you were first person to see a rattlesnake and you didn't know anything about snakes or anything, and you saw a rattlesnake. Personally, I might go, oh, look, it's shaking. That's interesting. What's it doing with its tail? Oh, it's just bit me. Oh, I'm dead. Right? We had to go through some pain to realise, stay away from rattlesnakes. And, oh, them berries are nice on that tree. I'll just have one. Oh, what a mistake that was. All right? And again, the second person probably made the same mistake. And I fear that with AI, we've got that learning we're still that immature at the beginning. But the scary thing is how fast it is.
No, I think
I have to disagree with you on this, Andrin. I'm sorry. I understand where you're coming from, but again, it's 2026. We're dealing with computers, at least in a large scale, since after the Second World War. Still, let's call it until the 50s. The Orange Book was created in 1999. It's been there. All of this is there. Why we went from a model that have control over the data to a model that we are just selling something that we have no control over the data is still my question. Is as much as I understand where you're coming from, fundamental design principles were not being used for most of the AI systems being used out there. They're not. They're not there.
That's what's called agile development.
No, that is just let's put something in the market very quickly to work, and then we'll make the most money out of it, and then we'll see the rest.
It's
that's what they'll call agile. That's what they'll call agile development. It's about profit return, not necessarily. Lots of you just got to look at how many startups start up and then fail.
Yeah,
and then people complain about GDPR and NIS2 and all that.
If you look at the first versions of things like DOS and the Apple Mac software, it would crash. They were not as robust as now.
I don't mind the crash, but all of them had separation of access between the users.
Yeah, I get it. But
there's another facet though, like what Tiago says is, I don't disagree that there's a right way to do it, and we've known right way for a long time. But someone who works very much at the cutting edge, lower down the security maturity curve, could I go and find 10 people a day in relatively small organisations that don't even know what a framework is? Definitely. I speak to companies that have had a great idea and have managed to persuade people with cash that their idea is worth pursuing. So they go and pursue it. And they've set up more than ever before to sell it in 3 years. And it's just an idea. They haven't even started it. And I come across inquiries from those people all the time going, oh, apparently we have to do something about this security thing. If we want to sell, because if we sell and we haven't done, then it'll affect our multiplier. So we don't want it to affect our. So the driver's not even to be secure; it's the value of the company they've just built with AI to sell in 3 years, and that's kind of what we're dealing with.
For someone like Anthropic or Gemini or Microsoft that been on the market for years, I don't think that is the drive. I am sorry to say. They are creating systems, in the case of Anthropic, that just recently admitted that 100% of their code is created by machine learning systems. Machine learning systems, they were training software security. If you ask any of your LLMs, even the open source ones, do you know what is OWASP? Yes. They will tell you yes. Now, you're telling me that they don't know this, that they're just putting this at speed because they don't know? Maybe. I'm slow again. Thin for that.
No, I mean, put it this way. I know I spoke to somebody in a bank in the Philippines, and their issue with vulnerability management and their SAS and DAS was why they couldn't report to their executives why they couldn't get it under 20,000 vulnerabilities a month. But they were still going. They didn't stop and not release those systems. So, people know that they're putting stuff out. They've always known. When I started in this industry, I worked with an hacker who were a good bad hacker. He were bad because the police did call around to his house once, and before he started working with me. But in them days, these good bad hackers would call out Microsofts of the world for releasing stuff that were definitely broken. And Microsoft didn't like it, and there were a big fight. And then eventually they said, well, tell us first, then we'll fix it. And then we'll tell everyone that you Hacksaw X found it. And that's kind of where it will. But again, commercial greed drove them just to get stuff out there. So I think the issue is from a how to do it right viewpoint, we're very mature in some respects. For a willingness to be mature, we're not. It's just like,
Fair enough. Fair enough.
how can we make cash?
But also, people, as Tiago says, people's knowledge is diluting. I mean, if you talk to an average developer these days, and you ask them about DNS and email and how these things work, good luck. I mean, the other week I had a meeting. I don't think they'll mind me telling you this because it was quite funny at the time. But in the meeting, I ended up saying, "Listen, lad, I was setting up email servers before you were born." Half joking, and it turned out that actually I was setting up email servers before these guys were born, and people don't understand how the bits are put together, and that's a problem. So they're coding over here, and something's happening over there.
But
It's all TCP and Linux. That's basically it. It's all TCP and Linux, TCP/IP and Linux, and you're not reinventing the wheel. You're just embedding stuff over the top of it. And it's the loss of the fundamentals. A typical way to look at it is if you looked at Azure networking. Azure networking works at layer 3. The concept of layer 2 is gone completely. The same in AWS. No one knows about MAC addresses. No one knows about collision domains. No one knows about any of that anymore because it's all obscure. It's gone. It's somewhere in the sky. They don't matter, but it's very, very relevant.
This is life full stop though, isn't it, these days? I mean, it's like if I were a 17-year-old person who just passed my driving test, I definitely don't know how that car works. I just know it goes when I press the go button.
Yeah, but the people that fix the car don't know how it works now because they plug it into a computer that tells them how it works. There's no real skill there anymore. The only skill they've got is how to twiddle a spanner to take the part off that the computer's told them to take off. So they're relying on everything along those lines. The other thing that worries me is that we talk about all of this going on, and Chris, you said DNS, MAC addresses, so on and so forth. I think that's because things are going so fast nowadays, and skill sets become more focused. Whereas when I started my career, it was more a general focus, whereas now it's more a specific focus. I've lost count of the amount of times that somebody has in my career in AWS exposed an asset to the internet with an any rule on a firewall that they think they're put in place to protect them because they don't understand how the firewall actually works, and they should be restricting it to only the ports that they're using. And they don't understand that the firewall is one part of it, but you also need an application firewall to protect the application you're putting at the back end to do all those bits. And they don't comprehend that. And then I'm seen as the bad person or the aggressor because I'm going and telling them that, sorry, but excuse me, but we need you to shut that down because you've just exposed. Well, yeah, but it's only a test box. Yes, but that test box is not in a connecting to VPN or in an isolated area. And have you not thought about lateral movement or how somebody can come in and jump off your box onto something else that's within the VPR that you're in? And you don't have those conversations because the developers don't necessarily have that skill at the point in time of their career.
Yes, they think they're throwing it over the wall and maybe someone else will fix it.
And then they do it in a Kubernetes cluster. They put it in a Kubernetes cluster. And they've got a development and a production environment in there. Well, I just thought I'd spin this up, but that's where your production data is. Yeah.
You just mentioned,
it works.
You just mentioned the K. You just mentioned the K word there.
Oh, is that me in the doghouse now? I'm in the doghouse. You started with AI.
Yeah. Well, okay. So we're approaching our time, and I think we've been a little bit doom and gloom, and we're recording this on a Friday, and it's the weekend, so. Let's go around for some final thoughts. what's the positive outcomes? What's the good news? How can we use these tools to make the world better? Starting with Tiago.
I think the tools are fantastic. Again, as I said, if you know how to work with them properly and even have a series of agents working all together to retrieve it, there's fantastic work being out there. Even things like OpenClaw, properly managed, another agentic AI being used out there, coordinated properly, can achieve a massive amount of work in a small amount of time. I can tell you out of the bat, I'm working in an open source project that I might share with just you guys for now because it's still a bit under the wraps around this area. And I can tell you that 5 years ago, if I wanted to do this project, it would not take me 3 to 6 months. It will take me 3 to 4 years. So the advance is absolutely massive. My only concern is what I've started with in this is the way that these tools are being released with minimal or no care about data privacy or data segmentation or even role-based access controls over the data at the vectorized data level. Apart from that, I think this definitely is the future. I would put this in the same level that when we moved to start using computers, when we moved to start using vapor engines, we moved to start using electronic calculators instead of logarithmic rules on this, but at an exponential level. The world that we know today, right now, is in a very fast-paced change. In 1 year, we can sit here together and it will be an extremely different world, is my view, what is coming. So for those out there, especially the ones that work in security, from the amount of code that you have to review, from the amount of infrastructure as code that you are going to be deployed, the pace is so fast that you can, as Gregory was saying, you need to have AI to help you on your own tasks. I now feel that I have to deploy almost 4 or 5 agents to every task that I have under my belt to be able to keep in control with a very lean team. Otherwise, I will need to create a massive team that is not supported by the business.
Cool. Okay. So, Marc, what about your positive outlook then?
I,
How do
I,
we use
I
these
think
two?
I think AI will have a positive influence on the industry. It will help us be more efficient. I also think it will create more opportunity. So the doom and gloom about it's going to take over our jobs, I think is a bit of a fallacy. I think it'll actually create more opportunities because businesses will grow quicker and will need to expand and take on people. So on a positive note, I think it's good for the future. It's progress, which is what we want. Still, my doom and gloom hat on. I said it needs more controls to start with, and that's what we're lacking at this time.
So, Vin, you seem to have a drone going around your head at the moment.
I've got a
Is
wasp.
that AI wasp
Got a
or
wasp
just
attacking
a
me.
normal
Yeah,
one?
it's like
Yeah.
annoying.
Yeah.
It's
Have
all
you
me to
got?
do my fact. Yeah. So no, I guess for me, it's like I always come back to the same point, really, which is computers aren't magic. They're just like big maths machines, aren't they, really? And the lesson my computer manager was taught me back in the day when I asked him, could he computerize a particular system I were using? He said, yeah. I said, will you? He said, no. I said, why? He said, because your process is a swear word. I said, really? He said, yeah, it's dreadful. He said, computers aren't magic, Vin. They just do stuff quick. And if you've got a rubbish process, you'll just have a really fast rubbish process. Get a good process, then I'll computerize it because I'm wired that way. And I thought, I really like that. And then I think about AI, and if someone said, describe it in one word, I'd say fast. And I think of Jumping Jesus, this thing whereby we invented fire, and we came out here, we invented fire, we invented wheel, we invented machines, we invented, got given microchip. And all of a sudden, we're overtaking ourselves. You know, you remember when we got to a point, we can't get chips to go faster. Put a big fan on it. Oh, we can all go faster again. And everything just keeps getting faster, faster, quicker, more. And I think if we can get over the shock of what AI and the rate of knots it's moving at and catch up with it, then we always find a way, don't we?
Yeah, I mean, you've reminded me of something from 1993 when I was doing my A levels many years ago. We were warned in our computer science A level about a question that used to pop up every now and then, which was basically an elderly couple were running a sweet shop, and it would go into the description, and it would say, how do you computerize this shop? And the answer was actually not to computerize it, because adding the computer layer to it would actually make it more complex. And that used to throw quite a lot of people, right? So, you're right on the process. If the process is broken, doesn't matter what you throw at it, it's going to be still broken, isn't it? Garbage in, garbage out. Right, Greg, your final words of wisdom before we wrap up.
From a perspective of an engineer and from perspective of business, I think it's huge. I think it helps us go so much quicker, create so much quicker. I think it's really, really, really excellent. I think we're going to get bitten by the guardrails really, really badly, because all of our learnings and stuff that we've got needs to be applied to AI, what we're doing. Everything we've learned about securing systems, we need to do an AI. It's so much shadow IT. It's like a massive shadow IT product.
Shadow.
You're trying to do it. And societally, I think it's a nightmare. And I really, really do, because the road to hell is paved with good intentions, right? And there's all the good intentions on this. There is a hell of a lot of people that are going to lose work. There's a hell of a lot less tax take going to happen. What happens then? Because in a capitalist society where you live, it's about profit. And people don't matter. It's about profit, and the snake will eat itself, because if you ain't got profit, it's not in people's pockets. People can't spend the money. So you're going to have a generation of white collar workers now with no work. What happens then? Where's the tax take? So I'm being positive on one side, and on the other side, I'm saying here there be dragons, because it's going so quick in every other change that we've had time to adapt to it. This one we won't.
No, it's easy.
Watch this space.
You see, I mean, you're there by. I mean, I've got to counter your negative there by Dragon's argument and say it's easy, because the £4,000 Chinese robots with AI on will deal with all them masses of people that don't have a job getting in where. We'll be all right, mate.
Just remember about the experience about giving free money a few years ago in the Nordics and how that was hushed. That was already because they knew that at some point we will get there. That's a conversation for another podcast.
Well, I think we should probably this group should probably meet again, maybe in 6 months, to sort of see how things have gone. But so on that note, Vin, I'm just gonna wrap up. So thanks to Marc, thanks to Tiago, thanks to Greg, and Vin. I'll leave you one thought for the weekend. Make sure you say please and thank you to your AI agent, because you never know, in 10 years' time, you might be their agent. Anyway, thanks everyone.
Cheers, guys. Bye.
Bye.